I'm Riley Reese. This is the Sofia Unfiltered Podcast, where we bring together thought leaders, wellness entrepreneurs, makers, and emerging health leaders. We're here to have raw, unfiltered conversations because sharing your stories has the power to change lives, help others heal, and transform the way we take care of ourselves. Here we go. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sofia Unfiltered. Today, we are joined by Heather Wolcott. She is a seasoned, national board-certified health and wellness coach with over 2 decades of experience as a holistic nutritionist and fitness industry expert. With a focus on functional medicine principles, Heather excels in uncovering the root cause of her clients' health issues and guiding them towards optimizing the fundamental pillars of health, which are sleep, stress or mindset, movement, and nutrition. So beyond her expertise in these areas, Heather brings a deep passion for longevity and anti-aging protocols, aiming to help individuals mitigate the cognitive decline and enhance their overall health span. Through her collaborative approach, Heather partners with clients who seek transformative change, empowering them to reach their wellness aspirations and evolve into their best selves. And if you were as impressed as I am with her work, you can book her at sofiahealth.com, more specifically, sofiahealth.com/shop/Heather-Wolcott. Welcome, Heather. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. This is exciting and it's fun because I know we're going to talk a lot about women's health and sleep and all the things that I absolutely love. And I could talk about.
Yeah, and for everybody out there, so I was privileged enough to sit in on one of Heather's talks and ask her to the show. She is incredibly knowledgeable and breaks down information. So if you are out there and experience any sleep issues or hormones or just curious about what we should know on anti-aging, we are about to hit all of the topics and all of the things. Heather, where do we even start? Do you want to tell people who may not know about you a little intro?
Yeah, well, I mean, you described all of the stuff that I do, but just about me personally. So I currently live outside of Nashville, Tennessee. I'm in Franklin, and it's absolutely like heaven on earth for us. We moved from Phoenix, Arizona. I lived there for about 23 years after college. I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. So kind of went back and forth between the Midwest, West Coast, and now the Southeast.
Yeah, I'm from over there in Middle Tennessee and now in California. So we're in my neck of the woods.
Yes,
So,
we love it. We have seasons. So I'm married. I've got 2 kids, and we really love life here. My background, as you already said, is in holistic health and wellness and nutrition, and I'm a certified functional health coach, board certified health and wellness coach. And my whole life has been like fulfilling my passion of helping people, teaching people. Actually, my undergrad is in secondary education. So I was an 8th grade language arts teacher for a few years out in Phoenix. And then I started for my master's in holistic nutrition. And I just feel passionate about always helping people. And if I know something, I think everyone else needs to know it, whether they want to or not sometimes. But I just feel like if you're gifted with something and you're blessed to have a skill or insight, that it's yours to share, not to hold on to. And that's just how I kind of walk through life.
yeah, absolutely. And now you've been in this industry of the fitness wellness world for a very long time.
Yes.
And now we are about to jump into all of the things women's health. I mean, and being in the industry for over 20 years, you've gone through, and you've got 2 babies, right? So you have been through all of the different transition points on women's health, right? So those are tricky times, getting pregnant, having baby, if you're lucky enough to do that, like the trying to conceive, the whole piece. So where do we even get started? You want to share a story with us?
Yeah. I'm going to share kind of my background. I've always been in fitness. I played tennis in high school as a cheerleader. I became a Johnny G certified spinning instructor like way, way, way back. Very long time ago. And so I taught the 5 a.m. spin class like 3 or 4 times a week. And then I taught a 9 o'clock spin class. So I was that spinning instructor. I was at the gym, or I would teach. Actually, I would get up at 3:15, which will tie into my sleep issues that came down the road too. So I got to 3:15, I'd walk my dog. I would get on my bike. I'd bike 20 minutes to the gym. I'd teach a spin class at 5 a.m. or 5:15. I taught at a couple of gyms. I would lift weights. I would bike home. And then I would either go to work and teach 8th grade, or when I left teaching, I would walk to the Y and I led a walking group. So Needless to say, I was very active, but very overtrained. I mean, we'll just put it out there. I was very overtrained. And I was
And were you doing this? I mean, this sounds like what we were told to do. Get up, work out, go to work, relax, walk, go. So were you doing this like 5 days a week?
Yeah, I taught the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays. I taught at one gym. I taught Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Monday, Friday, whatever, at another gym. Yeah, I just taught all the time. Again, I was in my 20s. And so this was
Go
like,
hard. Yeah.
go hard. And in that time, I had moved from Cincinnati to Arizona. So I had all these changes. And I lost my cycle pretty early on. My cycle was never super regular. I don't really know. My mom had a full hysterectomy when I was pretty young. So I don't even have her health history. Other than that, she had a lot of health problems. So that's all I know. So I don't have her to gauge by like what my path could be. So I lost my cycle in my early 20s and I just kept pushing. I was very lean. I was running half marathon, 5K, teaching spin classes. I lifted weights. I never left the gym. I wasn't only cardio. It was definitely cardio and weight. I ate a lot, but it's really hard to eat enough when you're that active, and your hormones and your metabolism is pretty strong. So 11 years goes by and I've had no cycle for that long. And
how old were you? I mean, are you in your 20s? Were you like 20? Were you like
20 to about 31? 20?
Oh, wow.
No, I take that back. Yeah. Well, see, I had Anna at 35. So I got pregnant at 34. So yeah, early 20s. And before I fully lost it, I mean, it would be like hit or miss, the 3 months. It was, so for a couple of years, it was like really wacko. And then it was like just gone. And I had this warped sense of, this is awesome. Who wants their cycle, right? This is easy. I don't have to worry about it. And I was really in a mindset that now I look back at it and I'm like, man, it was very warped and distorted. And it's kind of sad, but it was what it was when I was at that age. So
did you tell your doctor? Were you curious? Like, what happened?
So another part of the story is I was diagnosed with full-on osteoporosis at age 26 because of my lack of estrogen. And even with the strength training and even with the diet and even with everything that I was doing, because I didn't have that hormonal support and I was depleting my body on such a high, rapid level, my bones just couldn't keep up. So I looked very strong, but my bones were very brittle. And they wanted to put me on Fosamax. They wanted to put me on all these bone drugs. I said, absolutely not. And I just kind of went along my merry way. And I'd find the next doctor who did want to put me on that. And I kind of bounced around between naturopath. I was doctor shopping until I found the one that I liked what they were telling me, what was going on. But like I said, I was very lean and I looked very healthy. I felt great. I had great energy, but I was getting up at 3:15. It was actually 3:17 every single morning and just burning the candle at both ends. I left teaching after 3 years and started my practice and my study in nutrition. And so I just started working with clients and then my life kind of changed. Well, then I got married. And at first, again, I was like, I don't want kids right now. So not a problem. And after about a year or two, all of a sudden I was like, okay, my husband is one of 5. He wants some kids. It was a process of really surrendering a little bit of ego because my identity was so wrapped up in healthy Heather and being the nutrition and the fitness and the spinning. And I had to back off from spin classes. My diet was really good. I was taking a lot of supplements. And one really cool thing that my doctor had, I finally found a practitioner who I absolutely adored, and she's fantastic. And she took a very holistic approach with me. She was a functional medical doctor. And because I had no cycle, I mean, I had like no hormone, nothing. She put me on a moon cycle. And I talk about this in my hormone webinar, that back in the day, I mean, we're looking at tribal Native Americans, people who lived in small villages, the women often all cycled together. And they would usually cycle with the new moon or the full moon. And one's a red cycle and the other one's a white cycle. I forget which one is which. It's in my webinar. But there would be like 75% of the women would all cycle together and then about a quarter would cycle on the opposite. And I think that's nature's way of keeping everything in balance. We can't have all the women cycling at once. That would kind of not be good. But to have this balance between the two, because when we're cycling, we're in a totally different state of mind. We have a different energy, different mindset. Physiologically, we're just different. Chemically, we're different. So she put me on a moon cycle. I did all kinds of things. And I took 1 month off of training. I couldn't teach any spin classes. I wasn't allowed to go to the gym. I had to take 4 weeks off. And it was hard. I went through a lot of identity crisis because I wasn't at the gym, and those were all my friends were there. Everyone I saw every day, your community. My body was definitely going through some, like, it wasn't used to being so still. So I was dealing with some of that. And actually after 4 weeks, it felt so good that I took 1 extra week off. And that extra week off, I ovulated for the first time. And I got I shouldn't say ovulated. I got my cycle for the first time. So 11 years, I didn't have my cycle. And that 5 weeks of rest and really being very intentional, my body started cycling again. Now, that was in August. And by June of the next year, I finally ovulated to the point where I was actually able to get pregnant. So it's an absolutely miraculous story. I did acupuncture. I feel like my Chinese medical doctor and my FMD like saved my life. Like they just worked so well together. But in the reflection of that time of my life, now where I am, like many years later, and I understand women's health and our hormones and the beauty of the cycle, it makes me sad to think I really spent all of my 20s kind of like a guy. I mean, I was just lean. I had really high testosterone. I had like no estrogen. I shouldn't say I had really high testosterone, but I was definitely more T than estrogen and progesterone. Very out of balance. I didn't feel what I feel now. Now I'm very dialed into my hormones. I know just by the way my body feels I know where I am in my cycle anyways, but I feel it, and I see it in my patterns. I see it in my behavior, my emotion. And I look back at my 20s and I just didn't experience any of that. I was so out of touch and not as in tune with my body as I probably thought I was. I thought I was so in tune because I was lifting and doing all these things. I was physically in tune, but probably emotionally and chemically, I had no idea. I had no idea what was even supposed to be happening. I just know I was getting my cycle and it was easy. So, and since then I've gained my bone back.
I was going to ask, like, now that you've got your estrogen kind of regulated, do you still have an osteoporosis diagnosis?
No, totally recovered from that, which they told me I wouldn't. I know my bones are great. My bone mass is great. My muscle mass is still really, really strong. I have a great doctor out here in Franklin, and she has one of those. It's not an in-body. It's actually this souped-up machine that you stand on, and it reads all the things. And it told me my biological age was 29 last time I went, and I'm like, I'll take that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so yeah, I mean, and I think that story is important because I work with a lot of women who are frustrated with their cycle. They're mad, they don't like it. It's a pain. It's a nuisance. They're so negative about it. And I think if they understood the beauty of it, what's really happening, why we cycle the way we do, and why we're so different from men. I started my hormone webinar with women are not little men. We're not little men. Research makes us look like little men. Studies make us look like little men, but we're not. We are so chemically different than men. And I go through some really interesting statistics with, hormone production. And, we release 1 egg every 28 days. And men are releasing I forget, it's like 700,000 sperm like a day. I mean, it's like, we're just so different. And I think if women were more educated, especially when they're younger, about the beauty of this and what even like perimenopause and then menopause. I mean, people don't want to think about that, but what that even means, that it's not the end, it's a new beginning, and that you get to start a new journey. You're not reproductive, but you're still productive. So that's a big passion of mine. I love working with women on that. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I don't deal with their hormone situation, but I think the conversation around their mindset and their attitude, and then how they're feeding their body to nurture where they are, their cycle. There's just certain elements of fitness and behaviors that work really well, that pair well with where we are hormonally.
For all of our listeners out there, I mean, I'm just trying to imagine, right? Like women who may be dealing with this and maybe suffering from this kind of alone, those young, you're young, you're maybe super fit, you may be, training for these different types of events, like our athletes who may have their periods, and what would you say to them, and what would they do? Sometimes you're in a situation where you might not have that chance to give your body that rest. I'm just trying to think from our listeners' point of view, all these things. I mean, that's a lot. 11 years of not a natural.
It's a lot. Yeah. It kind of shocked people. It shocked my doctor here when I had my first appointment. You have to go through all your history. And I told her, she kind of was like, wow, and you weren't taking anything. I said, no. And that was just me depleting my body and not fueling it and nurturing it like I needed to. The athletic component is really hard. So I wasn't training. I was not an Olympic athlete. I was, a rec athlete, just an instructor. And I've been in the fitness space for a very long time. And I just see the patterns with a lot of instructors. And there is a bit of an unhealthy, there's a lot of body dysmorphia. There's a lot of unhealthy relationships with exercise. They look like they're healthy because they're the instructors and they're so passionate, but there's not usually a very healthy relationship there. Burnout, overtraining, teaching. And so that's one thing. I think if that's your situation, there's a point which you have to step back. I eventually stopped teaching on the bike. So I taught for several years. I mean, once I had my daughter, I taught for 4 more years, but I taught most of my classes off the bike and walked around. And I think I was probably a better instructor and a better coach off the bike. So I didn't have to be doing the spin class like 5 times a week. I could just be coaching them. And that's actually how Johnny rather us teach anyway. So there's that. But when it comes to athletes, when it comes to collegiate athletes and professional athletes, it's hard. And if they have a really good doctor who's really working with them and supporting them, then that would be ideal. Because there is a point at which you just go over that tipping point and hormonally your body just can't keep up. And it really just comes down to body fat. And your body fat is, I was like below 8% body fat. I was really, really lean, like really stupid lean. So, there was a problem, right? But there are some sports that require women to be very, very lean. And at some point you have to make a decision and just really evaluate what is more important. But when that's your life and that's your job,
that's right.
It's hard. So I would really encourage women to find a practitioner out there, probably a female one who really understands hormones and who can support them through that. And just be checking in with them about body image and making sure they're fueling their bodies and on good supplements and getting enough protein and enough fat and so all those things. It's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting. You mentioned body dysmorphia and you've got everybody who wants to have that tiny, no fat, whatever. But then on the other side, like what's not discussed is the unhealthy piece of this. And then what it could be doing to you as a woman, like taking the female component completely away. That's extreme.
Oh, yeah. Sad to say, I just posted something last week that our obesity rates have tripled in one generation as a country. From 1987 to 2021, I think, I had 3 charts. So there are women out there who are underweight, they're depleted. That's not the majority of who we're talking about. Right. Really, we have women on the other side of the spectrum, probably still cycling, but probably having a really hard time with it. Painful, cramps, migraines, sleep issues, just really almost wrestling with their bodies over that. And I would say that's now a health issue, right? You get healthier, we start dealing with these other issues and the hormones then come to balance. You really can't fix hormones that easily in a body that's inflamed and unhealthy. You kind of have to touch that layer first and then get to the hormones. The hormones can balance themselves out.
If you give it a healthy environment.
Right.
Got it.
Hormones are just messaging. They're signalers. They're little messengers. They're signaling molecules. So they are paying attention and responding to the environment. They're kind of talking with each other. When one hormone is out of whack, it's a domino effect somewhere down the line with all the other hormones because they're all like in this big, like team hormone. And they all communicate to some degree. So, Western medicine compartmentalizes our human body, and in holistic functional medicine, we see it as a whole. So it's good for your heart, it's good for your brain, we do something for your liver, it's affecting the pancreas, and everything is very interconnected, and there's upstreams and downstreams, as opposed to just being an endocrinologist for your thyroid. Might not get the result that you want because the thyroid is part of a bigger system. And sometimes it's the pituitary gland sometimes the thyroid is fine. The pituitary gland that is unable to signal to the thyroid to make TSH. So it's a pituitary issue, it's not a thyroid issue, but the endocrinologist will focus on most of them.
One piece, one system. That's right. That's why we love our functional medicine practitioners. Absolutely. Yes. Or the holistic, the naturopath, they all when you can look at the whole picture, right?
Yeah. And you look at root cause. Absolutely.
Yeah. Every single time. I think that's a great start. So Let's go back a little bit for our listeners. So when you took this 5-week rest, like what else happened in here? So when your period came back, and I want to get to that because I'm curious, what can our listeners be like identifying, when our hormones are telling us something's off? Like when do we go in and get to the doctor? So what came back in that 5 weeks?
I was tired because I think my body just wanted to rest. You know how it is, like a body in motion stays in motion. So when you're going, and you're just running on adrenaline and tapping into your stress hormones, your cortisol, you kind of feel good, but you're kind of buzzing on artificial energy. It's not real energy. And I remember being tired, like just wanting to sleep and really struggling with sleeping in, like to like 6. I mean, that just seemed like I was failing. I had this pride because, in my sleep webinar, I'm a lion when it comes to my chronotype. So I'm an early riser, but there's a point at which your body also just needs rest. So I just remember I felt tired. I did feel a little lethargic. I didn't feel super great at first because all of a sudden I just kind of stopped. I was swelling a little bit. I had a little bit of edema because my body, and I did call my doctor and she's like, your body is just trying to work all this through without your movement. It's just trying to pick up where you left off like 11 years ago. And I would have to say after the 5 weeks when I got my first period, I still didn't feel great. But all of a sudden, I never wanted something so badly. I was like, I just want this to happen. Because I knew we wanted to have kids. And I thought, I've got to make this happen. And so my perspective, my priorities really changed. Right. And that was then my goal. So I was happy to give up spinning classes. I started giving classes away. I still went in and taught twice a week. I gave up my Saturday class. I gave up I started backing off and thinking, okay, I'm seeing now there actually is a shift when I shift what I'm doing. There actually something happened. I ate kind of the same. And I remember when I went back, the first day I went back to the gym, I remember a gal who took my class for years, and she was probably in her 40s. So she was, I don't know, maybe 10 years older than I was at the time. She said, Heather, you look so glowy. She's like, you just look like you're glowing. And I thought, is that good? And she's like, yeah. And I think it's because I had rested my body. I had just really nurtured my body, taking care of myself for those 5 weeks. And I wasn't just up, and going. I slept more. And that kind of stuck with me, that someone was noticing that I just radiating different energy than my prior.
Right,
and
right.
Again, I don't think anyone said I looked bad. Well, I thought I was too lean. But there's a difference when you see someone who looks more holistically healthy. And that was an important comment to hear. And I think it helped me stay in that lane because I knew people were picking up on that. Yeah.
But you said you didn't actually feel better.
It took a while. It took a while. So we went to Europe. My husband worked for a company where he had an 8-week sabbatical. And we had our sabbatical in, I'm trying to think, September. So I got my first cycle. It was August 5th. We were leaving in September. And ironically, we were biking through France. So I was going to be back on a bike every day for 10 days. I remember by the time we got to Europe, and we spent I don't know, we were in Europe for 2 or 3 weeks. And we were moving around and we were doing things. I started feeling better. But I think being in also I was in Arizona in July, in August. And if you've ever been there, it is kind of like being in hell. It's very hot and it's miserable. You're just hot. You don't want to go outside. I wasn't moving. I don't know if I was swimming or not swimming. I don't even know. But I think part of it was just the heat. No one feels that great there in the summer. And then I'd changed so many things. So I think once we traveled, because I remember when we came back in October, I felt really good. And my cycle was starting to balance out a little bit. And I really was honed in on that. So it did take a while. 11 years, that's a long time for an entire system in your body to cease working, just stop.
Yeah, absolutely. I just can't even imagine. So you're basically saying our hormones are little messengers, which I think is awesome. So your sleep, we were talking about sleep as well. So did your sleep shift? Did you notice a shift in this?
Yeah, it's hard to remember. I know what I was doing then, and I talked about this in my sleep webinar, fast forward a few more years, but I was only getting up early on the days that I taught. So the days that I taught, I'd get up crazy early. I was backing up a little bit, 3:45. And then the other days I was sleeping until whatever time. I also had a baby at the time once I had Anna. So, then there's that. Then I went into the motherhood thing with the sleep and whatever. And it wasn't actually that bad for me because I was used to kind of having crazy sleep. So my baby sleep was not that bad. But I was doing this alternating up early one day, sleeping in later the next day. And when I share it in my sleep webinar is that when I started tracking my sleep, again, fast forward more years with my Oura Ring, my sleep I could not get a good sleep score. Not the score that I wanted, at least I'm pretty competitive. It was off. And I didn't really figure out why. I just figured just my life and whatever. When we moved to Tennessee, I stopped the every other day thing of getting up early. I get up at the same time every day, whether I'm going to the gym or not. I still go to the gym early in the morning. I get up at 6. I get up at 6, 7 days a week. And that circadian entrainment and really honing on circadian rhythm and circadian balance has made all the difference in my sleep, my energy. And that's really, really important. I can't emphasize enough for people who are struggling with any health issue, especially if it's hormonal. But if your sleep is kind of like zigzaggy, right? You sleep in, you get up, you go to bed late, you go to bed early, and you're all over the place. You're kind of asking for your body to be a little bit of a hot mess because that circadian rhythm is a clock and it just wants to just go on its normal rhythm. And when we disrupt that, it has a downstream effect on a lot of things. So that's really, really important. You got cortisol and you have melatonin, and those two hormones are counter-regulatory, which means when cortisol is on the rise, melatonin is always going down. If you look at them on a graph, they're going opposite directions. So if you're doing anything to increase cortisol, you're suppressing melatonin. If you're doing something to increase melatonin, the cortisol is going down. And in our lifestyle today, we are kind of swimming in cortisol. We've got lights on all the time. We're in front of screens all the time. We're just stressed all the time. Low carb diet, like chronic low carb, will induce more stress hormones. So that actually elevates cortisol to trigger gluconeogenesis. You have to be careful with your diet, especially if you're a woman, where you are in your cycle. You need more carbs versus more fat. So if you can get the circadian clock in sync, a lot of people will see other health issues or other problems start to resolve.
Yeah, this is incredible. And I really want to dive into this because I think that your sleep webinar is phenomenal. And I think that so much of this is kind of like what comes first, right? Your sleep is messed up and then you have these issues, or you have the issues and then you notice like your sleep is all over the place, right? So where can we unpack this? Most people probably come to you and say, I'm having trouble sleeping, and what do they do? So for all of our listeners out there who may have trouble sleeping, where do we start?
Yeah. So it's interesting because people actually will come to me wanting to lose weight, have more energy. And I ask them about their sleep.
Oh, interesting. So what comes first, right?
Yeah.
And then where are we in the hormones as women?
Yeah. And yes, I mean, I could talk nutrition, eyes closed, upside down, backwards, all day, every day. Like I can do that with people very, very easily. That's actually not that hard. Getting them to change sleep is really hard because there are so many lifestyle factors, behaviors, habits, and it's impacted by the other people in your household. So if your husband or your spouse, your partner or your kids, or if you're a mom with a teenager and you're not going to bed until that teenager comes home on a Friday or Saturday night, you're not going to bed at 9 o'clock. You're just waiting until they come in at midnight to make sure that they're home. So there are a lot of factors, and sleep is probably my favorite thing to start with, but it's probably one of the harder because not everyone can just change their sleep and it not affect the rest of their family. So that's a bit of a thing. So we have to work with that. But there are things that everyone can do. And I tell them, well, it's not just you, everyone in your household needs to be doing some of these things. So my sleep webinar, I really like to focus on something that is, I call it a little bit below low-hanging fruit, but it's our light and it's our environment. And if we just pay more attention to our light exposure during the day, from the moment we wake up to when we go to sleep, that alone is such a strong signal to our circadian rhythm and our circadian biology. Light signals cortisol. And if we are just unable to get to sleep, it's probably because our melatonin has just been suppressed because cortisol is constantly being stimulated. If we could shift that. Now, here's the catch. The more light you're exposed to during the day, the better you'll sleep at night. But that's natural light. So the more you're outside, if you can get outside, I try to get my clients to get outside 3 times a day. I mean, it's crazy that that's hard for people, but with jobs and work, and sometimes it is, but if they can get out first thing in the morning within the first 60 minutes of waking up and just get first morning light into their eyes, on their skin, that alone is so, so helpful because that kind of starts the circadian clock. We have about 12 to 14 hours of cortisol, and we typically have about a 16-hour day from wake up to bedtime. So if you get up at 6, you're probably going to go to around 10. That's like about 16 hours. That's kind of where our human biology kind of likes to work. So kind of being aware of that clock. If you can get out again during the middle of the day, we have something called high solar angle, which means the sun is high up. So we're getting light coming in from a different angle than we are in the morning when it's low solar angle. And that actually signals to some neurons in our brain where we are in our day. So for people who are inside all the time and they're just working, and might have windows, I mean, windows are nice. I'd encourage you to work by windows, but they don't replace getting outside and having, again, unfiltered light go into your eyes. So that means no sunglasses. One light.
I would definitely want to bring that up. I was blown away at a webinar. So I'm a sunglasses, sensitive blue eyes, and you like, do not put the sunglasses on. I'm blown away. So if you can just elaborate on that for everybody who wants to put their sunglasses on and go outside.
And this will be controversial with people in the eye health industry. They're not going to completely comply with this, but there's a lot of evidence that shows that we didn't have sunglasses forever, right? So this is actually a very new invention. But we did have shade. We did have hats. So I love hats, visors, fantastic. You know, the example I give in my webinar is a sundial. That's our original clock. And that's when I talk about solar angle. So we know where we are in our day based on where the shadow lies, right? Well, if you put something over that sundial, like a blanket or an umbrella, all of a sudden you don't know what time it is because it's been blocked by the sun. When we put sunglasses on, it's kind of like blocking that signal. So our suprachiasmatic nucleus is the neuron that sits in through our eye, through the retina. That can pick up where we are in our day based on the angle of the sun and the wavelength of the sun. Just think of sunglasses as like a blockade. They just are blocking that signal. I mean, they're supposed to block UV light. And when we're outside with sunglasses, we're just missing that information and missing that signal. So I like to refer to light as information. The more light you're exposed to, the more information you get. Light is also information in a negative way. Blue light is information that does stimulate cortisol. Fluorescent lighting, junk lighting, LED light, that's information. That's very stressful to our bodies and stressful to our brain.
So going to work at the office with fluorescent lights could be stressful in of itself.
Very stressful. It's stressful on the brain. Yeah, exactly. And they look at rates of, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole too much with skin cancer, but people have higher rates of skin cancer who work indoors than who work outdoors. And the debate is it a lack of vitamin D from sun exposure and the addition of the stimulation from the fluorescent lighting. So, there's a debate on that. So sunglasses, people, now we love sunglasses because they balance. You might not know this, but the reason people love the way they look in sunglasses is because it creates symmetry on our face, because sunglasses are fully symmetrical and no one has a perfectly symmetrical face. But when you put sunglasses on, it makes everything look symmetrical for the most part. That's why we look so good in them. I'm just not a fan. Now, the exception would be if you are somewhere like on water at the beach, and sometimes it's just skiing. I mean, when there's a glare and the sun is actually damaging, it's really, really strong. I think sunglasses are fully
We're not talking about when it's dangerous like that, but you're talking about take 5 minutes at lunch and just get reset during the day.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Going to and from the store, like you get out of your car, you don't need your sunglasses to go into Trader Joe's. Like you can go from the car to Trader Joe's, you don't need your sunglasses. I mean, I feel people at school drop off and it's like 8 something in the morning. It's not even that bright out and they've got their sunglasses on. And
that would be me.
We hope you enjoyed learning about hormones and how they can help give you insight and awareness into your well-being. Stay tuned for part 2 of our episode, where Heather Wolcott will explore further ways hormones influence our lives and how sleep is integral to optimizing hormonal balance and overall health.
Thanks so much for listening. This has been Sofia Unfiltered, a podcast by Sofia Health, the #1 marketplace for health and wellness. Find services, classes, and products from the top health and wellness providers. Book an appointment or join live classes now. I'm your host, Riley Reese. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear about it in the comments section of your favorite podcast provider or with a 5-star rating. Let us know what your biggest takeaway from this episode was, or share it with someone you hope to inspire. Join us again next time for more real conversations, stories, and insights that help empower you with the knowledge and inspiration needed to transform how we care for ourselves.